my neck, my
Uh,
back.
Social media, we're all looking at our phones.
We're all sharing it out.
We're all sharing it out. Get it shared out. Social
Yes,
media.
sir.
Let's talk about this. This is actually, to me, one of the best topics that we can actually talk about as parents and as adults too. So it goes both ways. It's not just us as parents, but we go through a lot of this. And hey, we have the Amy Kraus on tonight. How are you tonight, Amy?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. Glad
Yeah.
to be here. This is a huge topic. This is a
e-
huge topic I talk about, but it's also just a huge topic in general to our lives.
Exactly. And I think this is really cool because we're going to jump in here and we're going to talk about social media, and we're going to actually have you talk about a story that happened to you here in just a couple of minutes. We'll get on that and talk about this story because this is a great story. It really is. And Doc is going to bring his A game tonight. He said, it's on this topic. So very proud of you, Doc.
Thought I wasn't allowed to.
Yeah, no, you can bring it. So this is good. All right,
Yeah.
let's talk about social media. And if you're watching tonight, please make some comments, ask some questions. I think this is just such a amazing topic. Before we get started, Amy, talk about why this is an important topic to you, but talk about what you also do for a career as a living now. You are the community leader of the Teacher Tribe. So introduce yourself and talk about it a little bit, and then we'll kind of get into it.
Yeah. So, former teacher, now the community leader of the Teacher Tribe on Convene Communities. I'm also a youth empowerment speaker. So, I go all over the country speaking to kids about empowering themselves, self-confidence building. But I also talk to parents about all of the things that come up to help them feel empowered so they can help their kids feel empowered. And a big part of it is social media.
Yeah.
Because when they start to realize that sometimes what they see on social media isn't always true,
Yeah.
then they kind of get a reality check of that. But I'm also here to say social media is not always a bad thing.
It's not.
It's
not.
what brought Matt, Doc, look what we're doing. We're
Yeah.
literally sitting here utilizing social media to get out to people this conversation. So it's not all bad.
Yeah, and that's as me. I'll play devil's advocate on this tonight because I always like to do this because I think it's very important that we as parents. There's two sides of this coin. We want to be very controlling over social media, and I play the side of the house that you have to learn to understand social media because if you as a parent don't understand how social media works for your kids, then you're wrong because guess what? These phones and this social media, they're not going away. And if you're one of those parents, I'm going to block it. I'm not going to let my kids have social media, then you're actually maybe being a detractor of how they're going to grow and how they're going to be able to interact with their friends and all that, which can be very detrimental. And I have some stories and topics on that. So, but let's tell your story about a great trip. You are, an a speaker, and you went on a trip a couple weeks ago. And
Yeah.
this is great because look, how long have we had these phones in our hands? The last 20 years, consistent phones in our hands. And so tell your story about what happened.
Yeah. So again, I travel all over the country. I typically my phone is what I utilize to speak to the schools that I do. I do emails, I do Zooms, a million and one things that we all utilize our phone for. But that's how I run my business typically when I'm out of town. I don't pull my laptop out to start conversations or have Zoom calls. It's through my phone. But it's also the way that I communicate with my kids when I'm not home. So for anybody that doesn't know, I have 12-year-old twins. They are in the thick of social media land, phone land. So trying to teach them responsibility when it comes to phones and making sure that they're charged and they're not brought out when it's not appropriate and things like that. So about a month ago, I was leaving for a trip, and I typically here in St. Louis, I will either Uber to the airport because I don't want to leave my car there. So I was Ubering to the airport, and magically my phone somehow got left in the Uber. So I got into the airport, realized it within 10 seconds because it wasn't attached to my hand. I'm like, well, where is it? Went through my bag, and I travel very lightly. So checked everything. what the heck happened? Must have left it. There
Did you
was
say what the
no
heck, or did
I
you say something else?
no, actually, I'm working very hard to curb my language. Um, but there was no way for me to contact the driver because I didn't have my phone. So went into the airport, spoke to some amazing people at the airport. They tried to find a number that I could contact. No way to do it. They let me use their phone to try to communicate. Didn't have any way to. Now I will say, my 86-year-old mother, anytime I travel, says, please check in with me when you get wherever you are so I know you got there safely. I couldn't do that. I didn't have a phone. So I was like, what the heck am I supposed to do on the plane? I'm like, what am I was flipping out because I wasn't attached to me. I didn't have communication. So when I got to my destination, we forget how much we utilize our phones for everything. How am I going to call an Uber? I don't have a phone. So I was thankfully for that particular trip, I had a car, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But again, how do you look up your reservation? I didn't have my phone.
Yeah.
And, it was all those things that you don't think about. Finally got to my hotel. Well, I need to check in with my kids. I noticed I said, I need to check in with my friends. And Matt was nice enough that night to check me on that comment. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, there's a phone in your hotel room, dummy. Use the phone in your hotel room. And I'm like, well, how does that work? Like,
How do you make a collect call or whatever anymore, or a call?
I can't find the send button.
I was like, what? So I called and, checked in with everybody, here in town. Everybody was fine. Even though mom was flipping out, mom was dealing with something, they were all fine. The house didn't burn down or anything like that.
They weren't too stressed out back at the house, were they?
They were like, oh, okay. Hi, mom. Like, literally.
12-year-olds didn't even know you were MIA.
Yeah. They were like, oh, you lost your phone. Oh, that sucks.
Cool
We got
story,
ours.
Mom.
So, but I had to figure out, and we were actually on a call that night. And I was like, I'm just really frustrated. And I was more frustrated with myself.
Yeah.
But I was like, why am I panicking because I don't have my phone? I can utilize my laptop, which I did. The world did not end because I didn't have contact with my kids.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people as parents, we go, well, we had to have that constant communication.
Yeah.
Do you?
Well, and it's more for you, right? It's more
Absolutely.
for you. It was all about you and everybody back home. The mom, you checked in with her, told her you're there and you're okay. Okay. Your kids are like, okay, they don't want you texting them all the time anyway, or calling them all the
No,
time anyway. It was
absolutely not.
you losing that connection right
Yeah.
there that was causing the reaction.
This
Because it's so simple to just send my kids, and my kids are in the world of texting. Like,
Yeah.
even some of our conversations, and parents are going to come at me. Don't come at me, parents. Some of our best conversations are via a text message because that's when they open up more.
come at me, bro.
Yeah. I'm like, But it really was. Like, I was more panicked. My kids were like, whatever. Like, I was literally gone for 24 hours.
Yeah. It
And,
was
and
not a
for me to like be panicked about that, like as the evening went on, as we talked that night, I was like, what the hell am I worried about?
exactly.
Why am I worried about that? Like, I
So-
can just enjoy my evening without anybody blowing up my phone. Matt texting me constantly about
Are you have your community going? What's going on in your
Yeah,
community?
yeah.
I mean, it's like,
So
Yeah.
this is something I'm struggling with right now with my wife, right? Because she is that helicopter mom, basically, and it's coming from a good place, but I'm like, you got to pop them off the titty at some point, let them go to the back behind our house is a school, right? And there's this big white fence, privacy fence that separates, but it's like, let them go. They're,
Yeah.
we're going to hear them if they scream for help. It's
Yeah.
literally 100, it's maybe 100 meters, if that.
Yeah.
So it's like,
No, you're so right, and this is such a big topic. That's why I really wanted to do it, and I talked to Amy about doing it when she had that, her story going on because it's such a big topic of about us as parents in this generation that we're in. Uh, we need to we need to let our kids grow up. We need to let our kids experience life. I mean, look, here we are, we're, all close to the same age. Doc's a little bit older than us,
watch your mouth, watch it.
Now here's the point. The point is we survived. We survived. We totally survived, and we want to put this bubble over our kids and protect them so much that we're not allowing them to go out and make basic decisions in life. And it shows. One of my favorite stories that I always tell is that when my son was off at college, driving my Ford F-150 Super Crew while I was driving a beat up Ford Fusion because I was driving back and forth to, air medical bases. I called him and we were going over that night to go see him play soccer, college soccer. And I said, "Hey, I'm coming to get the truck tonight. So I need you to do something before you go to your game." And he was like, "What's that?" And I said, "I need you to go to the campus police and I need you to pick up a temporary pass because I'm going to take that Ford that Ford F-150 Super Crew that you're driving, and I'm going to get new tires put on it. I'm going to get the oil changed, and I'm going to get it inspected, get a new sticker, and I'm going to bring it back to you. So I'm doing it all." And he's like, "Oh, I don't know how to do that." I was like, "What do you mean you don't know how to do that?" And he goes, "Well, I don't know where the campus police is." And I'm like, "What do you mean you don't know where the campus is?" He's like, "Well, I don't know how to do that." And I lost it. I mean, I went Marine on him. I was like, "Why don't you go out of your effing dorm, take a effing right, walk down to the next building, walk in there and just say I'm Braden Curran because I've already made a phone call and it's sitting on the counter for you."
Did,
And he was like, "Oh," and I knew I had messed up as a parent at that point. I literally felt it. I was like, I've messed up as a parent because I do it all for them. We do it all for them. We don't make them stand on their own 2 feet sometimes. And you just have to. You got to make them stand on their own 2 feet and make calls. So my daughters, like I never ordered food for them or anything like that. If it was something they're like, "I'm hungry, can you order me some food?" No. No. But it's little stuff that we have to teach our kids to communicate. We have to teach our kids to do things. And so we have to allow them to grow. There you go.
Yeah,
There's my
and it's
tangent.
education. It's
Yeah,
education. And
it is.
we didn't, phones come along, we're like, "Ooh, how do I go about teaching
Yeah,
my kids about?" And you hear all of the scary stories that, people put out there. Yeah, you gotta be smart about it,
correct.
and
uh,
and these kids that are for me, like, if I were to ask both of you gentlemen, what do you think is an appropriate age for a kid to have a phone?
Yeah.
You're gonna hear people give all kinds of
It's all
different
over the place.
I'll
Yeah.
It's
give
all
you
over
an
the place.
answer right now.
Yeah, what do you think, Doc?
When your ass gets out there, gets a job, and pays for it.
Yep, I agree with that. Yep.
Yeah. But there's some catch-22s to that, right? Because
Mhm.
it happened at different age levels for my kids.
Yep.
And so Braden was a little bit older. Megan was a little bit younger than Braden was. And then Lainey was a lot younger because what ended up happening is my wife would pick them up from school, drop Megan off from dance, go pick up Lainey from school, go pick Megan back up from dance, take Megan to soccer, and then drop Lainey off to soccer, take Megan back to dance, and then have to get back to get Lainey. And there was one time that there was a traffic jam on the highway, and she was about 30, 45 minutes late to get Lainey and had no way to tell her. I was working, I wasn't around. So that was like when we were like, okay, we're going to get her a phone. She was in fifth grade at the time, but it became a necessity kind of for communication because of all the running around. It wasn't the first time because of traffic, but that one was real late. So,
I-
yeah,
I'm
but you have
gonna
boundaries on it.
I'm gonna tell on myself a little bit.
All right, let's hear it.
So yeah, I talk a big game about the phone thing, but both my kids have them. Uh, they're 12. My daughter will be 14 in 2 weeks. Oh, jeez.
Oh, you are
Anyway,
old. Oh, sorry.
gosh, watch your mouth. Um, but that's not really what I wanna tell myself about. My son just came to me 2 nights ago, and he wants to get Snapchat.
Oof.
And I'm just I know what we've had this talk many times before, Matt, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I can get on board with the Snapchat at 12 years old.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yes.
And I think that, you have to set your boundaries. This is my thing. You have to set your boundaries as a parent, and you have to decide what you're going to let them have and what you're not going to let them have. But you also need to have what we did specifically with Lainey, because social media, I have older kids, 27, 24, and 20. So when
Wait,
Braden was first starting,
who's old?
yeah, I know you're still older than me, bro. So here's the deal: is with Braden, it's Facebook, and then shortly after that, Instagram came in. When Megan came in, it was Instagram was coming, and then Snapchat came in, and then sometime TikTok came in there, and then with Lainey, it was Snapchat was the big thing with Instagram hanging out there and all that. So truly, with you, it was different. The permissions that we had with Lainey, it was like, okay, there was actually a little bit more control that we put on it. And it was, okay, you can have these things, but your mom has total access to them. Anytime she wants to get on, she can get on. But what I felt like, and I've always been this way, it came down to communication. It came down to teaching our kids through the responsibility. If you're going to have this, we're going to talk about the pros and the cons, the good things and the bad things, and how if you go out there and screw up, how it can turn on you. And unfortunately, I will say this, unfortunately for other people, fortunately for my daughters, my son was of that age of everything. And there was some stuff that went down social media wise and our stuff where some girls had made mistakes. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. This is a conversation you have to have with your daughters. If you think you can go out with a boy and trust him and send him some pictures, you are full of shit, because the minute it goes south, so will those pictures. And so my daughters were able to see that for some girls, and we use. I'm sorry, but we talked about those sort of things. And, you don't want to be in that situation, because the girls' reputations, it was out there because everybody knew. So you have to have those hard conversations with your kids, is what I'm getting at. And,
Yeah.
and they're learning lessons learned,
Yeah. And it's the aspect of setting those expectations. I won't even call them boundaries, but expectations, and sticking to them, but also adjusting as they show they can handle certain situations.
Yeah.
My kids this past year have not been allowed to take their phone to school. I was like, you don't have any reason if the office needs to call, they can call me, whatever. You don't have any reason. Well, you can't pull it out. It's got to stay in your backpack all day. But there was the conversation. But no, I was a hard no for me.
Yeah.
And as the year went on, just honestly, within the past probably month, 3 weeks, my daughter says, "Mom, everybody takes their phone to school." I go, well, "What's the purpose of that? Explain it to me." Literally, I wanted to make her explain it to me why she thought it was necessary. She's like, "Well, what happens if you're late? How will I know?" I said, "Okay." They do a lot of after school clubs. I said, "Okay." I said, "This is what I'm going to let you do. And we're going to agree upon it. We're going to talk about it." I said, "I will let you take your phone to school, and it does not come out during the day. It stays in your backpack, which stays in your locker." I said, "And if for some reason you need to contact me, it better be after school hours." And she said, "Okay, I will." She was going to stay for an event, and she said, "I'll just let you know when we're done, and that way you know when to pick me up." Okay, fair enough. So she did. She did phenomenal. No problems, no issues. I didn't hear from a teacher. I didn't hear from an administrator. I said, "If you can start to show me your responsibility and understanding of it, then I will extend it." It's just like a bedtime. If they
Yeah.
show you they can handle it, you can extend it if needed. So this very thing came up this week. I was out of town yesterday. Grandma's in charge, and something came up, and my daughter said, "Mom, Tuesday, can we take our phones to school? We have this club after school, and we didn't know about it. We don't know what time we get done." Okay. I said, both kids jumped on me at the same time about that.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'll tag team me. I said, I will give you both the opportunity. I said, but I'm telling you, you get caught with it during school or you get caught during club, you lose the phone for a month.
Dang. Mom.
And they were like, okay. Well, I didn't hear it. And I was home to be able to get them today. So the only time I got a message is at the very, very last few minutes of their club. And they wanted to know where I was parked.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, fair
Yeah.
enough. I said, you showed responsibility, and then we can move forward from there.
Absolutely.
Let your kids be part of the conversation.
Correct.
And I think that's what you were just talking about, Matt, letting them be part of the conversation. But 12, like Doc, you were talking about Snapchat at 12. I'm like, what are you all snapping at 12? So like, that's weird to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's very innocent. He's got a small group of friends, and they're always doing, what's that stupid game, Fortnite?
Yep.
And that's what they're into. So I mean,
But all right, so look, let me give y'all some social media lessons. You ready?
Mm.
There's different levels of communication through social medias, and I don't know if you know what they are, but you got to understand that this is how your kids communicate, and it's not going anywhere. Meaning it's not going away. So as they grow, as they get older, and as they grow, there are certain things on Snapchat, right? So I always get it when I love being on with parents, especially parents with younger kids. And I know Amy's been subject to this when I say, what does it mean to leave somebody on open? All right. So what it means to leave somebody on open is that you look at that Snapchat and you don't respond back to them. Now, you can think about how they communicate as kids. If it's a boy-girl situation and I send the text to Tisha or the snap to Tisha, or she sends the snap to me, let's reverse it. She sends the snap to me and I open it and don't respond to her. What is she thinking?
What did I do wrong? Why is he mad at me? Something's going on. He's cheating on me.
He doesn't like me. He doesn't like me. If I sit there and let's say we're sitting at the dinner table, or let's say, because we say no phones at dinner, let's say we're sitting there and we're talking as a family. And she sends that to me, right? And I'm talking to my parents and I go like this and I just take a picture of the ceiling. What do you think that means?
I read
Doc,
it, but
any
I
idea?
can't see it right now.
I got no clue, man.
Yeah, but what that means is I see it, I acknowledge you, I'll text you, I'll Snapchat you when I can. You're acknowledging it. They have it's a whole language that they speak through this. Now, even the next level. So I'm talking to Tisha, right? And we're snapping, but then we step it up to where we're texting. What does that mean? We've ramped it up a level. Yeah. Now we're in real communication because we're texting. It's not just snapping, it's a text. That's the next level. So we've gone to the next level. So you got to understand as a parent, you have to do your homework and you kind of got to really kind of jump in there and understand how they communicate, what it means. And it's a whole different level. They don't verbally communicate like we did or like we do at all. Nope. So there's different levels of communication. So the bad side of it is do you let your kid have a phone? Do you not let your kid have a phone? It's as simple as that. If your kid's the last one to get a phone, I have somebody that I really know, I won't say who it is, but they didn't get a phone to their sophomore year of high school. They were the last one. What did that turn in? They were getting bullied.
Yep.
You can't afford the phone. You can't afford a phone. Your family too poor for you to get a phone. Mm-hmm. So all of these things really play a part of what goes on in their world. And so again, I don't know what's right. I don't know what's wrong, but it's up for us to educate ourselves as parents.
Yeah. And I don't think it's a right and wrong. I think it's a what works for your situation. You
Yeah.
know, I'm also in the position of a little bit different than you guys in that my children have divorced parents. So if my kids are with their dad and they need to communicate, well, they're not going to say, Dad, can I use your phone and send a message? I want them to feel safe, that they can have a safe, secure conversation with me if they need to, if something's wrong or they feel they're in danger. Again, that's the mom mentality. It's a parent mentality of we want to make sure our kids are safe and secure wherever they're at when they're not with us. So if something comes up and I need to know about it, they have a phone. Now, I will say, in regards to phones, I did not purchase the phones because I thought my kids got phones in 4th grade. I thought they were too young. I didn't think they were ready, but I was overruled, and we put parameters in place in 4th grade that were very, very tight. They had no access to social media. They were only able to use the phone for emergency and to contact me or their father. That was it. Because it was simply used if they were with one parent or the other. 5th grade, we gave them a little bit more freedom. They were able to do YouTube and things like that as they gained a bit of maturity. But they had to prove it. They had to prove that they could handle it. They had to be educated about it. And let's be real. There's some scary people out there on social media and in real life. And in real life. Educate your kids on safety features, but educate yourself on them first.
Sure.
So that you can go and you can be the expert in explaining it to them. Because chances are, like you said, Matt, they're probably going to teach you some things about social media.
Absolutely. Well, how do I know all these things? It's because it's been open, honest conversation. No, it's been open, honest conversation with our kids all the whole time about social media, how it works, all those different things, and it's it's again, my wife has had access, to be able, especially with Lainey, be able to really look into it and make sure everything's okay with her and all that.
I will fully admit I check my kids' phone on a regular basis. I know their password. I will check their phone for the conversations. They know, they're fully aware that I check their phones. It's a conversation we had, and I explained to them my reasoning behind it. I want to make sure you're safe. I want to make sure that people that are unsafe are not getting to you. And if they are, how do we handle it as a family?
Like dog.
But I don't think, and I've had conversations with parents about that. Do you not check your kids' phones? Again, I think that's a personal choice, but for me, I check their phones.
Sure.
Because of incidents that have happened. And I'm like, no, because we need to have a sit-down conversation about incidents. And the other piece is maturity. You have to look at the maturity of your children. And this is no dig on the male gender, but in a household where I have a son and a daughter, my son is all about YouTube watching reels, not talking to girls. Like that is
Wrong.
He could care less what's going on in that realm of the world. Doesn't mean that he doesn't like some of the girls at school, but he's on there watching things about Fortnite or Roblox, whatever. Whereas my daughter is, again, she doesn't care. She's watching dance videos. She's watching, gymnastics videos or how to bake or whatever. You have to know your kids to understand what they can and cannot handle at whatever age they are. So, Doc, I would say to you, look at your 12-year-old. See, is this something that he can handle? Is he ready for it? And what parameters do you need to put in place and conversations you need to have?
He's probably a lot more mature than I am, to be honest.
That's saying a whole lot.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not saying a lot.
Wow. Well, there goes that thought.
No, seriously, Doc, what were we saying?
I don't even remember now. Jeez. Hey, don't mind me. I'm just gonna sit over in the corner in the fetal position for a little bit.
Yeah.
No, I think with the right parental controls in place, I think it's worthy of at least a trial run.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's part of my point is having the conversation and setting the boundaries and saying, hey, we're going to talk about this, and here's the boundary for you, and show us the responsibility, like what Amy's saying, and from that we'll continue. But it's the minute you show me that you can't be responsible, then there might be consequences to it.
Speaking of irresponsibility and immaturity, I can't help it because you told me to be on my A game today. So here you go, pal. Kyle in the room says
I
he's still
see it.
watching Instagram reels and not talking to girls at 28. But you know what's great about 28-year-olds?
What's that?
There's 20 of them. Oh,
20.
you're
That's
welcome,
actually
sir.
funny. That's good. That's good. Good comment. All right. Now let's talk about some total negatives of social media. Right? Because there can be a lot of negatives. There can be some positives, but there's
Mhm.
is a lot of negatives. And I tend to think that there's more negative for young ladies than there are for the young men, because again, men are stupid, right? We sit there and send reels to each
I
other.
did not say it.
No, but it is we to Kyle's point, right? We send there and send reels to each other, and this, the jokes, the people, you know, I mean, you name it, people busting on a motorcycle or people doing all kinds of just stupid stuff. That's the stuff that we think is hilarious and all that.
So
Go
I
ahead.
agree with you, Matt, because going back to Amy's point earlier about when you asked a question and what's it mean if you don't respond, right? And you're like, oh my God, is he this? Is he not into me? Dudes are like, oh, all right, whatever, man. You know,
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's right. That's right. And it's a conversation I'll have with, my girls and all that. And my wife is like, well, what do you think this means? I'm like, the dude doesn't care. He's not paying attention. He does not have that many brain cells in his brain to think that far ahead. He's just not going to do it. I mean, to him, leaving somebody on open, he's sitting there, he might look at it and he picks up his gaming controller again so he can keep playing Call of Duty. He's not
guaranteed.
he's not
Mhm.
thinking in that mindset. But for a young lady, and my girl specifically, is there's a lot to it. I mean, the whole thing of I was there and I wasn't in the picture, and they were all in the picture, or look at this, you know, look at this, how good and pretty and skinny and all that this person is, and I have to live up to that, and there's so much pressure out there with social media that it's really hard. It can be really hard on and boys too, but on girls too. I just think it's a different world, and that's where social media can be detrimental.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And if you think about it, when we were younger, we didn't have the social media. It was what? It was magazines.
Yeah,
It was magazine covers. Oh, I need to be skinny like that, or I need to be muscular like that, or I need to be a certain way. And when I speak to the kids, that is one of the things that I talk about the most
hmm,
is when it comes to social media is what you see is not real.
yeah,
They are putting out there, I don't care if it's your favorite music artist, celebrity, whatever. They are putting what they think you want to see.
yeah, yeah,
You're not seeing them without makeup. You're not seeing them in it having a panic attack.
yeah,
You're seeing them all fixed up, glamour, full makeup, whatever, in the best place, the best lighting. So our kids
yeah,
are getting a false sense of what is real and what is not real
yeah.
when it comes to social media and the negative aspect of it.
It was a number of years ago. One of my good buddies of mine called me, and we were talking, that I grew up with, one of my best friends. And he's like, man, I can't stand the Facebook fantasy world. That's what he called. He's like, I can't stand Facebook fantasy world. And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And he goes, for example, one of our friends, I'm not saying any names. He goes, one of our friends, you would look at their Facebook pages and you would think that everything is perfect going on trips, all this, all that, and the wife is having a divorce, affair on him, and he knows it. He just, but you would think that the world is beautiful, and it's not. It's falling apart. He said, so it's like a fantasy world, a Facebook fantasy world. You never know what's going on behind closed doors. You never know what is out there and is being projected. Is it real? Is it not real? And I thought that was a long time ago, and I took that on board, the Facebook fantasy world, but you could apply that to anything. You
Oh,
don't know
absolutely.
what's real and what's not real, but the FOMO is real. The
Oh,
fear of missing out,
would you call me?
Yeah. Exactly.
It is. It is, and I'll be honest, it's not just for kids.
Oh, no, it's
Grown ass
adults.
people have
Yeah.
problems with the FOMO.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But again, it's that false sense of I'm missing out on something, but you don't know that they just had a big old fight before they took that picture,
Yeah.
or the friends just, you know, disconnected their relationship because one's sleeping with the other one's boyfriend or whatever, you know, they're not seeing that piece. They're seeing a quick 2-second snap or whatever,
Yeah.
because in a certain way, in a certain position. And I think unless we explain to our kids that this is not always real life.
All the time.
This is
Well, you
it's
get bombarded with it. I'll give you an example. You get bombarded with it. You can sit there and go, "Oh my gosh, look at Doc and his family. They're over on this trip. Oh, look at Amy and her family. They're over on this trip." And so you're constantly seeing this family on a trip and this family on a trip. And then you get in your mind that, oh, everybody's taking trips all the time, but you're doing your one trip. Doc's doing his one trip. I'm doing my one trip, but you're getting inundated with trips. So you get like this FOMO. Like, we did go on a big family trip last year, but I think everybody else in the world went on a big trip last year too. And it was you're constantly seeing trips and you're like, "Oh, I want to go on another trip. Oh, we can't afford to go on another trip," So it's like you're just getting bombarded with it, and it's just not real. It's not real, you know.
and that's where parents step in and you explain that situation. And you say, this is what you're seeing, first of all. First of all, because of the algorithm, and
Yeah,
it's pulling everything that you stop for 2 seconds and look at, but really helping kids to understand that it's not reality. Yes, maybe they went on a trip to Italy and had a fabulous time, but what led up to that vacation?
yeah,
A lot of stress, a lot of worry, overwhelm, anxiety, a
yeah,
whole lot of money,
yep,
but what led up to that? Because I'm
yeah,
sure for some people, they don't see that. It's funny because I think it was last week one day, I very rarely do I post on TikTok anymore. Facebook usually is where I paste it because I'm old. And I started to post a picture last week, and I talk a lot about self-confidence and self-care. And I started to post a picture with a filter. And I immediately was like, why in the world am I putting a filter on this picture? So that it makes me look like somebody that I'm not?
yeah,
Well, that's not my message. So
yeah,
why am I putting a freaking filter on?
yeah,
So sorry, y'all. What you saw was what you got. But it was a real post. It was a
yeah,
real conversation I had to have with myself. And
absolutely,
when I talk to kids, that's the conversation I have. What would happen if you took the filter off of that snap picture?
yeah,
What
And
would happen if you said, I'm just having a really shitty day? And I think we're beginning to see little by little of those conversations being had on social media of I'm not okay today or I'm having a
yeah.
really rough day. Little by little. But I think it
Well,
takes people standing out and having that conversation and being comfortable.
I
I
gotta
think
stop
you
using them
got
filters.
no, Doc. But it's true though, because I think we went so far to the one direction of the filters. And I think everybody was using the filters. So you didn't know what was real, what wasn't real, what. And that's just it. It's like and that plays on our young kids. And so doing without the filters is a good thing because be your authentic self. That's who you are. That's who, and we talk about this a lot because a lot of people will say, and Doc and I had this conversation. A lot of people say, well, I don't want to do videos or I don't want to do a podcast because I don't like the way that I look and I sound. And it's like, well, you know what? You are who I know. That's the person that I see. And you sound like what you sound like and what you're normally. So that's only in your internal head.
Oh
That's
yeah.
only in your mind.
Yep.
It's not in everybody else's because we see, I see Doc, I see Amy, I see Matt, you know?
This sounds like the romper room.
It is. And I'm so young, I don't really remember the romper room, but
Liar.
I think that was my sister's age, but but I think that's a big piece of it of we have this internal conversation with ourselves. I don't care if you're 10, 12, 60. We have these conversations with ourselves of I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. The I'm nots. And where we need to transition and say I am.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard. We've
We
been
built this culture
conditioned.
for our kids. We built this culture for our kids. Our kids live in a mental health world.
Mhm.
They've been bombarded with mental health. They've been bombarded with that message in school, everywhere they go, all that they're doing. And I'm not saying it's bad and that we don't need to talk about it. We do need to talk about it, but we need to reframe it.
Mhm.
And we need to teach them the skills that they need to succeed, And that's what's important. That's what you do when you go out and
Yep,
speak. You're giving
absolutely.
them and that's what's great about it. You're giving them the things that they need to succeed.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's simply change not simply, but it's changing the language that we utilize with our kids and that they use for
yep,
themselves.
yeah,
Because oftentimes you're utilizing things that, well, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart. I had a student today that actually she said, I pulled her up on stage and she's like, you could tell her whole body just kind of
yeah,
shut down. I said, "Are you nervous?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm very anxious right now." I said, "Why?" And she's like, "I'm worried they're judging me."
yeah,
And I turned around and I looked at the other 300 kids. I says, "Anybody judging her right now?" And they were like, "Nope." I said, "Nope, that's the story you just told yourself."
exactly.
Like, I don't think about it like that. I mean, we're
Yeah,
talking, she was a seventh grader.
yeah,
And I'm like, but to be able to give them that guidance, to give them that education at a very young age is critical to their own mental wellness.
oh yeah,
And
mhm,
as parents, we're learning. It's
yeah,
a learning curve. And a lot of what I learned was as an educator, what I was seeing, but also a lot of it was based on myself as a parent and what I was going through with my own children from a young age. But when you come back to social media, teaching and educate, 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 educate. Because really on the scary side, there are some, and I'm gonna use this language, gentlemen. I told you I was trying to be good, but there are some fucked up people on social media. I know.
there is, there are,
There are
um,
people, there are
yeah,
predators out there.
there are.
Nobody will deny that.
Yeah. But again, that goes back to the education of it.
Yep.
That goes back to the education of it. You don't talk on social media to anybody you do not personally know because
Mhm.
you don't know who that person is, and that's a big message to my son and my daughters.
Yep.
But you have to take the time to have those open and honest conversations with your kids. You have to,
Yep.
because
And I know,
they're
Doc,
all
Doc, you were saying that your son plays Fortnite, correct?
Yes.
Okay. There's an opportunity to have conversations on there.
Yeah, when he's whooping my behind in the game.
Yeah, well, that's a given. I mean, come
Yeah.
on,
He's
you know.
good. I mean, and I suck, but that's besides the point.
But just having conversations with people that are able, that he doesn't know. I'm going to assume you had conversations with him and taught him don't have conversations with people you don't know.
Oh,
It's the same
yes.
thing for Roblox. It's the same thing for Minecraft. All of
Mhm.
those programs.
Yeah, that's right.
There are predators out there. And
There are.
unfortunately, we have to educate our kids. We have to make sure that and educate ourselves when it comes to that. We see it all over the news. We see it all blasted out there. But you have to be able to say, listen, take a little bit of the scariness away and say, this is why I want you to be safe. This is why I want you to make sure that you understand the consequences of
Right.
this conversation.
But
What
that's where
could
you take the real stories. That's where you take the real stories and you
absolutely.
show them and you say, look, there are people out there that are like this. You're old enough to hear this. Don't hide it from them. Be
No,
direct with them.
absolutely
Right.
not.
There are people out there that are crazy and you need
Yep.
to know these stories.
Adrian in the room, he brings up a big one, Discord.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not as familiar with that
I'm
one.
not as familiar with it, but I know it's, it's more of a chat, type back and forth sort of
It
thing.
yeah.
And there's the predators out there. You got to be careful with that. That's the real conversations you got to be having with your kids.
Yeah.
You know who
And
you can
be
talk to.
honest with them. We're not trying to strike fear in our kids, but we're trying to give them a wake-up call of this
Mhm.
is real life. What you're seeing over here and every reel that you go through is what they want you to see. This is real life. We want you to be smart and safe about it.
Yeah.
Well, I just tell my kids, I said, do you really want daddy to go back to jail? Because
Exactly.
I will
Oh,
kill.
I will too. I'll tell
Oh,
them. I'll tell
absolutely.
them. Y'all saw that ring I showed you earlier. I said, some boy mess with you, they're gonna have an imprint of this, you know, championship ring in their forehead.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, no, you just have to do it. I mean, Jody's bringing up some valid points. You have to talk to your kids, but you got to find the balance. The balance is hard, and you have to trust yourself as a parent. You got
Ooh.
to, that's what it comes down to. What it comes down to is a lot of times parents, and I got a great story. Parents look at, oh my gosh, how did we ever survive what we went through? We're not going to let our kids do what we did. So here's the great story. The stress and anxiety that we put our kids, because we're not going to let our kids go through the same thing that we went through or whatever. So there was a person, and I won't say how I know this story, but I know it. But young lady goes to a birthday party. That particular night, from the young lady going to this birthday party, there is there's a basketball game for their high school. Daughter texts mom, can I go, or calls, can I go to the basketball game? There's a group of people going from the party. Okay, yes, you can go to the basketball game. So obviously the daughter doesn't know, but they have her location on the phone. So on the way to the basketball game, this young lady, who is a 18-year-old girl, 18-year-old girl, on the way, stops with the person that she's riding with. They stop at a park. Now, this sounds like, okay, where's this going? They stop at a park, right? Because they were early on the way to the basketball game. Parents are looking at the phone going, she's not at the basketball game. She's at the park. So they immediately get in the car, go to this park, pull into this park. The young lady and the boy are sitting on the park bench in the front of the park talking. Nothing's going on. They're sitting there doing what 18-year-olds do. They get out of the car, they grab her, yank her out, put her in the car, and take her away.
Clearly, those parents have not been trained in the proper art of reconnaissance.
Exactly. She tried to
Well,
commit suicide that night.
Oh
I
my
was going to say,
God.
you've lost all trust with that child.
Yeah. Yeah, this young lady tried to commit suicide that night because one, she was completely embarrassed. Here she is. She's an 18-year-old young lady. Here's a boy that's interested in her talking. She's not in the, in the car, in the back seat of the car or back into the park with this boy or something. She's sitting at the front on a park bench and just talking to a boy and got embarrassed so bad. People are texting her about it and all this that goes on from the story, the way I understand it. You have to let your kids grow. Are you telling me when you were 18-year-old and you were a senior in high school that you weren't forming those relationships, that you weren't, talking? And that's where we've lost it as parents. We've lost it. We don't trust our kids. We don't let them live. We survived.
I will answer your question.
Let's hear
At 18 years old, the judge said, boy, you better go in the Navy or you're going to jail.
it. Yeah. Do you?
Yeah.
You
So
didn't have a choice.
my son, I sometimes I try to trick him into doing some of the crap I used to do because I feel like he's living a boring life right now.
Mhm.
He's a good boy, he really is. But
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Hey, you know, give them the opportunity to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And that's scary.
It is. As a
That is
parent,
scary.
terrifying.
It's terrifying,
Yeah.
but you
I,
got to.
I I literally just have gone through that probably in the past 3 months of letting my daughter go to certain events that are either school sponsored or something like that. Like there was a big, huge basketball game. She's like, "Can I go? I'm going to meet this person, this person, this person." And I was like, "Ooh, I don't know. I'm not really like I was really hesitant to be like okay with it." And I said, "Well, here's what I need you to do. Let me know that I'll drop you off there. I can see that you're meeting these people. Okay. This is what time." I said, "You text me when the game is 10 minutes out or whatever." And I didn't really get a text message. And then I realized that her and these group of people all went over to one of the boys' house that lives in the neighborhood right next door.
You go, girl.
I was like,
whoop, whoop.
I knew nothing until her and her best friend came around the corner of the building as I'm sitting in the school parking lot. And I'm like, "Where are y'all coming from?" "Oh, we were in the front of the building." I said, "No, you weren't." I said, "Don't give me that."
That's it. But you called her on it,
Oh,
and mom
yeah.
was able to say, "Yeah, don't try to pull that crap
Yeah.
on
She's
me."
like, "Well, this was the situation. We just hung out and we were watching TV." She said, "We were there for like 5 minutes and then it was boring. And then so we came back over here." And I said, "But you didn't tell me." I said, "If you'd have texted me and said, 'Hey, we're going to so and so's house. I know his parents. I know where he lives.'" I said, "But you didn't. So you were mistaken in that capacity." I said, "But I appreciate that you fessed up and told me this was the situation only because I called you on it." But again, I still gave her the opportunity. And since then, she's had other opportunities to do it with having this with her,
Yeah.
coming back to the phones. Know your kids. Know your kids, know their maturity level, know that the line of communication, whether it comes through here or you sit on their bed and have a conversation,
Yeah.
have that open line of communication with them. And don't fly off the handle because you can track them on their phone and they're
Yeah.
at a park with a boy and they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
I would have been mortified if I was her, as
Yeah,
it
she
sounds
was.
like. I mean,
Yeah. Again, you have to let your kids grow. You have to let them experience life. You have to. You have to. And because this communication, learning how to communicate, learning how to make proper decisions, giving them and how do you do it? You give them the real skinny. You talk to them,
mhm.
you communicate with them, you let them experience life. And if you don't do that, you're setting them up for failure. You are. You're setting them up for failure.
I
And I
was
truly
thinking,
believe that.
I was thinking we could do it the old Marine Corps style, on
Mm.
deployment, show pictures.
I mean,
You know what I'm saying? Don't be silly, wrap your willy.
I mean, you gotta do what you
Yeah,
gotta do.
I do what you
My
gotta do.
my favorite line to my kids is when I ask them a question, I always say, "Now, before you answer, I already know what the answer is."
Yeah, exactly. That's it. I mean, we're not dumb. We've been through it. We've lived, and you just have to. I mean, look, it's worked out. Here's the deal. I have older kids. My son is in good shape. He's 27 years old. He survived and he's thriving. My daughter, 24 years old, in medical school at Georgetown. My 20-year-old is doing very well. It's been a different journey when it comes to social media, when it comes to phones, when it comes to communication. Hasn't always been easy. It's been a little bit tougher on the 20-year-old than it was on the 27 or 24 because social media has changed. There's so much pressure that goes into that social media. They're seeing things, they're doing things. So you have to be prepared for that. But you got to have those hard conversations and that communication with them as you grow up and let them grow. Let them grow.
They must have got all that from their mother.
Oh, it
That's
wasn't
all I
me.
can say.
It wasn't me. You got that right.
You just paid for it.
Yeah. So
still paying for it.
Yeah.
All right. So we're coming up here. We got just a few minutes left. So let's get ready to close it out. And so, Amy, I mean, let's talk about it. What is your advice when you're giving parents to kids, parents to parents? You know, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, be honest with your kids and help them to understand that you're human too and you've made mistakes too. Just like when I told my story of leaving my phone and how did I handle that? It brought the anxiety, it brought the overwhelm. I had that conversation with my kids,
Yeah.
but also help them to understand by example that you can put the phone down
Yeah.
and disengage as needed. If we don't disengage as the parent from the phone or the laptop or whatever, they're not going to disengage with it. They're going to, that's going to become their whole world. And it is in essence, but there's also an opportunity where you can teach them to put it down for a few minutes and the world will not end. As I
Yeah.
thought it did when I lost my phone.
And it still kept spinning.
Yeah, everything seemed to manage. You
Yeah.
know, my kids were fine. My
Amazing.
grandma was fine, you know,
Yeah.
that it is possible to put it down for a few minutes. But at the same time, educate yourself about everything when it comes to social media and phones in general.
Understand how it works. I
Understand how
really
the
am
phone
going to try to get my daughters to come on. I want my daughters to come on and do a podcast with me about this from their perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We need to get some kids to come on and do it, and they need to be open and honest, talk about it, so we can be educated.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Educate each other.
Yeah.
I'll take copious notes.
Yeah. That's right. Doc, what do you got to say to close it out?
Well,
Since you're in the thick of it.
yeah, it's I don't know. I'm kind of the opposite. I like not having my phone.
Yeah.
I get annoyed, and if like that's why I go camping all the time. I just turn it off and disconnect, and it's very refreshing. But the kids are different because they've grown up with them now, and
Yeah.
it's
It's their way of communicating.
it's almost like a pacifier, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
But
and
it's their way. It's
Yeah,
their way.
totally.
They don't communicate like we do, and we have to
Right.
understand that. They just don't. And it's not going away.
No.
It's never going away. And if we don't learn as parents to respect that.
Well, you know, if Elon Musk has his way, you'll get the
I was
Neuralink going.
waiting.
Mhm. Well, okay. So last thing I'll say is, yeah, just educate yourself. Trust yourself as a parent. Know that your kids are going to survive, but be involved in it. That's very important. It's very important. I think you do have to set those boundaries, but you have to set them for yourself too, as a parent.
Don't
like
be
you
a
said.
helicopter parent.
Don't be a helicopter parent. I can't stand it. I think we've set our kids up for failure in this world because we do not allow them to make decisions, and it's showing. It
I
does
gave
show.
my daughter a trophy the other day for making her own breakfast.
There you go. There
Just
you go.
kidding.
But
Just
little
kidding.
stuff like that.
She
you
didn't
know?
make her breakfast.
Yeah. I don't think my son could have made himself a peanut butter sandwich when he was 16 or 17 or 18 years old.
Wow.
No, I'm just kidding. He could have.
I
So,
was like, oh, he can be
yeah.
hungry.
No, he
Wow.
could have. No, but my point that I'm making is, yes, just make sure that you're educating and you're working with your kids, but you're giving them the freedom. Give them the freedom to grow. Gosh,
Absolutely.
parents, stop hovering, you know, and that's a hard thing. So
It is. Takes practice.
it does. Okay, up in the corner, throw a little donation out there to Doc if you got it and you want to. He's doing great things for us. Totally appreciate you, Doc. You're the best. Come join the podcasting community. Every Tuesday night, we do this mental wellness podcast. If you know somebody who wants to be a guest or you want to be a guest, let me know. We're always looking for great people to come on and talk about all the great things that you are doing. This is a big topic. Continue to talk about it. Go into the mental wellness community, put some comments in there, put some discussion boards in there, and let's keep making ourselves better each and every day. Amy, thanks for coming on, telling your story about losing your mind when you lost your phone. It's funny though, because it is funny because it's like, how do you make a collect call nowadays? I mean, you know, half the time you walk into a hotel, pick up the phone and it's dead. They don't even have it turned on in hotels.
Yep.
It's still sitting on there, but it's not even turned on.
I'm glad it was on.
Looks pretty.
That's right.
Thank you
That's
guys
right.
so much. It was a
All
great
right.
conversation.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Everybody have a great
Absolutely.
night. Doc, thank you as always. Really appreciate you. You are the best.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Let's get out of here. What do you say? I got a little special treat for the outro.
Hey, this is my song right here.
Good night, everybody.
I used to have a flat top just like him.
I believe it.
I did.
I used